Millionaire follows crying girl, and what she whispers makes him call 911 immediately. The clock showed 3:47 p.m. when James Miller heard the words that would change his life forever. A little girl of only 5 years old was desperately whispering on the busy sidewalk of Manhattan, "Help, help, he wants to kill Mummy." The 45-year-old millionaire felt his blood freeze in his veins, but no one could imagine what would come next. James Miller adjusted the collar of his Armani coat as he exited the exclusive cafe on Madison Avenue. At 45 years old, he had everything money could buy, except the one thing that really mattered: purpose. His $200 million fortune came from successful real estate investments, but his personal life had been an emotional desert since his divorce 3 years ago. The fall of 2024 painted Manhattan in golden tones, and James walked unhurriedly through the busy streets when something caught his attention. A blonde little girl, no more than 5 years old, was sitting alone on a park bench, swinging her little legs and whispering something softly. Her clothes were dirty and torn, her hair disheveled. "Help, help," she murmured, staring into nothing. "He wants to kill Mummy." James stopped immediately. His heart raced. For years, he had passed by children in similar situations, always justifying his inaction with the excuse of it not being his problem. But something in those words hit him like lightning. He approached slowly, kneeling down to her height. "Hi, little one. What's your name?" She lifted her blue eyes filled with tears. "Lily," she whispered. "Can you help Mummy? The bad man said he'll hurt her if I tell anyone." James felt a wave of protection he had never experienced before. "Lily, my name is James. I'm going to help you and your Mummy." "Okay, where is she now?" "She stayed at the ugly house." Lily pointed in a vague direction. "The bad man took her. I ran and hid here." Without hesitation, James grabbed his phone and dialed 911. While talking to the operator, he observed Lily more closely. She had bruises on her small arms and looked like she hadn't eaten in days. His indignation grew with each passing second. "The police are coming." "Lily, you're safe now," he said, taking off his coat to cover her. "Can you tell me more about the bad man?" Lily trembled. "He hit Mummy yesterday. Said if she tried to leave, he'd do bad things. I was hiding in the closet, but I heard everything." Sirens could already be heard in the distance. James sat beside Lily, something deep moving in his chest. For the first time in years, he felt his life had real purpose. "My Mummy is very pretty," Lily continued, resting her head on James's arm. "She always said that one day an angel would help us." James swallowed hard. Maybe it was coincidence, but at that moment, he felt exactly like that. An angel sent to protect that child. But he still didn't know that Lily held a secret that would change everything. The police station was busy that Thursday afternoon. James held Lily's small hand while they waited in the interrogation room. Detective Sarah Chen, a middle-aged Asian woman with a gentle but determined gaze, had taken the case. "Mr. Miller," said the detective, "what you did is admirable, but we need to better understand the situation. Lily, sweetheart, can you tell us where your Mummy is?" Lily shrank in the chair that was too big for her. "Mummy is at the grey house by the river. There's a man with a scar on his face who won't let her leave." James frowned. "Can she describe the location in more detail?" "Lily has an impressive memory for a 5-year-old, observed Detective Chen. "Lily, do you remember anything special about the house?" "There's a black cat that stays at the window," Lily said, her words coming out clearer now that she felt safe. "And a red car always parked in front. The bad man is called Rick." Detective Chen carefully wrote everything down. "We'll conduct a search immediately. Mr. Miller, legally you have no responsibility here, but I want to stay with Lily until you find her mother." James interrupted. "She shouldn't be alone." Lily tugged at James's suit sleeve. "Do you have children, Mr. James?" The question hit James like a punch in the stomach. He and Susan had tried to have children for years before the divorce. Infertility had been one of the factors that destroyed their marriage. "No, little one, but I always wanted to have them. So can you be my temporary daddy?" Lily asked with devastating innocence. James felt his eyes fill with tears. "It would be an honor, Lily." 3 hours later, news arrived from the police operation. Detective Chen returned with a somber expression. James feared the worst. "We found the house," she said, "and we found signs of struggle, blood on the kitchen floor, but we didn't find Lily's mother or the suspect, Rick." Lily began to cry softly. James picked her up instinctively. "What does this mean?" asked James. It means this case is more complex than we imagined, the detective replied. Lily, sweetheart, do you have other family members? Grandparents, uncles? Lily shook her head. Just me and Mummy. It's always been just the two of us. James looked at Detective Chen, and now, normally she would go to a temporary home while we investigate, but the detective paused, studying James. Would you be willing to be her temporary guardian? Of course, you'd go through rigorous checks, but considering the circumstances, yes, James answered without hesitation. Absolutely yes. Lily hugged him tighter. For the first time in his adult life, James Miller felt he was exactly where he should be. But none of them knew that the truth about Lily's mother's disappearance was much more complicated than anyone could imagine. A week had passed since Lily arrived at James's penthouse apartment on the Upper East Side. The minimalist bachelor space was being rapidly transformed into something more welcoming. Toys scattered around, colorful drawings stuck to the stainless steel refrigerator, laughter echoing through corridors that for years had only known silence. James was learning to be a full-time father. That Friday morning, he was making pancakes while Lily drew at the kitchen table. Mr. James, said Lily, without lifting her eyes from the paper, why do you live alone in such a big house? The simple question caught James off guard. Well, I used to be married, but my wife and I couldn't have children and it was difficult. Didn't she like children? She liked them very much. We both wanted them, but sometimes these things don't happen as we plan. Lily finally lifted her eyes. My mummy always said that God saves the best gifts for the right moment. James smiled, flipping the pancakes. Your mummy sounds very wise. She's the smartest person in the world, Lily said with conviction. She knows stories, makes the best cookies, and can make any hurt heal with just a kiss. The phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Detective Chen. James, we have news. We found records of Lily's mother. Her real name is Emma Watson, not the actress, obviously. She's 28 years old, and the detective paused. James, this is strange. There are no records of her anywhere before 2019. It's as if she simply appeared out of nowhere. James observed Lily, who had returned to drawing, apparently carefree. What does this mean? It could mean she was running from something. Witness protection program, maybe, or something more serious. We're investigating. After hanging up, James sat beside Lily. What are you drawing, little one? It's you, me, and Mummy, she said, showing the drawing of 3 figures holding hands. When Mummy comes back, can we be a real family? James's heart tightened. Lily, do you remember where you and Mummy lived before coming to New York? Lily frowned in concentration. Mummy said we lived far from here, in a place with lots of trees, but she said it was a secret and that I should never tell anyone. Why was it a secret? Because the bad man from there was still looking for us, Lily whispered, as if someone might be listening. Mummy said if he found us, we'd never be together again. James felt a chill. Lily, this bad man from before, was he different from Rick? Lily nodded vigorously. The bad man from before had very strange green eyes. Mummy was very scared of him. She cried at night when she thought I was sleeping. At that moment, James realized he had gotten involved in something much bigger than he had imagined. Emma and Lily weren't just victims of domestic violence. They had been running from something or someone for years. The phone rang again. It was an unknown number. Hello, a male voice, low and threatening. You have something that belongs to me. James felt his blood freeze. Who are you? You know who I am, and I know where you live. James Miller. Return the girl and no one gets hurt. The call ended. James looked at Lily, who continued drawing, oblivious to the approaching danger. He knew their lives had changed forever at that moment. James didn't sleep that night. He installed an emergency security system in the apartment and hired 2 private guards to stay in the lobby. Lily slept peacefully in the guest room. He had transformed into a princess room in just 1 week. On Saturday morning, Detective Chen arrived with reinforcements. 2 federal agents accompanied her, Agent Martinez and Agent Thompson. James, the situation has escalated, said Detective Chen. Yesterday's call was traced. We believe Emma and Lily were in the witness protection program. Agent Martinez, a tall man of Hispanic origin, took over. Mr. Miller, Emma Watson is not the real name of Lily's mother. Her real name is Emma Catherine Donovan. She was married to Vincent Donovan, one of the Irish mob bosses from Boston. James felt the world spin. Mob. Emma testified against her own husband 6 years ago, continued Agent Thompson. Vincent was sentenced to 25 years in prison for murder and money laundering. Emma and Lily entered the protection program right after. But why did they leave the program? James asked. That's the question, said Martinez. They disappeared from the program 8 months ago. They simply vanished. Until now we didn't know where they were. Lily appeared in the kitchen doorway, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Mr. James, why are there so many people here? James knelt down to her height. They're friends, little one. They want to help find your mummy. Lily looked at the agents with suspicion. Mummy said never to talk to policemen. She said they couldn't protect us. Agent Thompson approached gently. Lily, sweetheart, do you remember why your mummy was afraid of policemen? Because a bad policeman told the evil daddy where we were. Lily said simply. Mummy said there was a spy in the police. The agents exchanged worried glances. Martinez whispered something to Chen that James couldn't hear. Lily, James said softly, do you remember your evil daddy? Lily shook her head. I was very small when we left, but Mummy had a hidden photo of him. She would look at it and cry sometimes. Did you see this photo? Yes. He had dark hair and scary green eyes, and a mark on his hand. Lily held her own right hand. Mummy said it was a burn mark. Agent Martinez stood up abruptly. We need to talk privately, he said to James. They went out to the apartment balcony. The view of Manhattan stretched majestically in the distance, but James could only think about the danger hovering over them. James, said Martinez, Vincent Donovan escaped from prison 9 months ago. James's world collapsed. What it was, a highly confidential event. Only a few people knew. He killed 2 guards in the escape. Since then, we've been looking for him, and we know his only obsession is getting his daughter back. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because we didn't know Lily was his daughter until she described the scar on his hand. Vincent has a cigarette burn on his right hand, a distinctive mark. James looked through the glass door at Lily, who was showing her drawings to Detective Chen. His little princess was the daughter of one of the most dangerous criminals on the East Coast. There's one more thing, said Agent Thompson. Emma wasn't kidnapped by chance. We found evidence that she was trying to make a deal with Vincent. She wanted to give information about other criminals in exchange for Lily's safety. What kind of information? The kind that could destroy the entire criminal organization in Boston. Martinez replied grimly. Emma knows where $50 million in dirty money is hidden, and Vincent wants back both the money and his daughter. James realized he wasn't just protecting an orphaned child. He was at the center of a war between the mob, the FBI, and a desperate mother trying to save her daughter. And Vincent Donovan was getting closer. 2 days passed in constant tension. James had turned his apartment into a fortress, but he knew they couldn't hide forever. Lily seemed to sense the change in the environment, becoming quieter and clinging more to him. On Monday afternoon, while they were having lunch, Lily asked a question that changed everything. Mr. James, why did Mummy cry when she looked at her wallet? James stopped eating. What wallet, little one? Her wallet. It had a photo of a man with a little girl. Mummy always cried when she looked at it. Do you know who the people in the photo were? Lily shook her head. But the girl looked like me when I was smaller. And the man, she paused, thoughtful. The man looked like you, Mr. James. James's heart stopped. Like me. Yes, same hair, same eyes. Mummy always said you were special, but I didn't understand because she had never met you. James felt as if the ground was collapsing beneath his feet. Lily, has your mummy ever talked about your real father? She said my real father was a good man who had to leave before I was born, that he didn't know I existed. At that moment, James's phone rang. It was Detective Chen, and her voice was altered. James, I need you to come to the station immediately. Bring Lily too. We found Emma. Is she alive? Yes, but she's hospitalized in serious condition. She managed to escape and arrived at the hospital 2 hours ago. She's asking for you and Lily. Mount Sinai Hospital was busy when James and Lily arrived, escorted by 2 federal agents. Emma was in the ICU, connected to various machines, even injured and pale. James could see she was a beautiful woman with brown hair and sweet eyes. When Lily saw her mother, she began to cry. Mummy, Mummy. Emma opened her eyes with effort. Lily, my baby. James watched the reunion with tears in his eyes. But when Emma saw him, her reaction was unexpected. She extended her hand toward him, whispering something inaudible. She wants to talk to you, said the nurse. James approached the bed. Emma grabbed his hand with surprising strength for someone in her condition. "James," she whispered, "I knew you would find her." "Emma, do you know me?" She nodded weakly. "Lily is your daughter." James's world stopped completely. "What, 7 years ago, one night, you were at Murphy's bar in Boston. I was a waitress." The memories began to return. One night during a business trip, he had drunk too much after a frustrating meeting. A pretty waitress he had talked to all night. "Emma, when I found out I was pregnant," Emma continued with difficulty, "you had already left. I only knew your first name, but when I married Vincent, he assumed he was the father." James looked at Lily, who was holding her mother's hand. The blue eyes, the shape of her face, the smile. How had he not noticed before? Vincent discovered the truth when Lily turned 3. Emma whispered. "He did a DNA test without telling me. When he found out she wasn't his biological daughter, he was furious. That's when I started planning our escape. Why didn't you ever look for me?" "I tried. After we entered the protection program, I found out who you were, where you lived, but it was too dangerous. Vincent has contacts everywhere." James felt tears rolling down his face. "Lily is my daughter, and now Vincent wants to kill her," Emma said, squeezing his hand. "Not because she's your daughter, but because she represents his humiliation. He'll never stop looking." At that moment, the hospital alarms began to sound. Screams echoed through the corridor. A federal agent appeared at the door, breathless. "He's here. Vincent is in the hospital. We need to leave now." Chaos took over the hospital. James picked up Lily while the federal agents shouted contradictory instructions. Emma tried to get up from the bed, pulling out the wires from the machines. "Don't let him get my daughter," she screamed, blood flowing from her arm where she had pulled out the 4. "Emma, you can't move," said the nurse. "I'd rather die than let him hurt Lily." James made a decision. "Emma, can you walk?" "Yes." "Then let's leave together, as a family." The shots began on the ground floor. Vincent had entered the hospital with at least 3 armed men. James could hear the screams of patients and staff. "There's an emergency exit in the back," said Agent Martinez. "Let's try to get there." They left the room. Emma was weak but determined. Lily cried softly, clinging to James's neck. "Daddy James," she whispered, "I'm scared." "I know, little one, but I'm going to protect you and your mummy, I promise." It was the first time Lily had called him daddy, and even in the desperate situation, James felt his heart fill with love and determination. They ran through the hospital corridors. Behind them, they could hear the heavy footsteps and threatening voices of Vincent and his men. "Emma, where are you, Emma?" Vincent's voice echoed through the corridors. "Bring my daughter back." "She's not your daughter," Emma shouted, unable to contain herself. It was a mistake. Vincent now knew exactly where they were. James saw a sign indicating emergency exit helipad. A crazy idea crossed his mind. "Martinez, can you call a helicopter on top of the hospital?" "It's possible, but do it now." They ran up the stairs. Emma was losing blood, leaving a trail that Vincent would certainly follow. James tore his shirt to make an improvised tourniquet on her arm. "James," Emma said, breathless, "if something happens to me, nothing will happen. Listen, there's a bank account in the name of Lily Miller. Yes, I used your last name. It's in the nightstand drawer of the room where you were staying in the protection program. It's clean money I managed to save. For her education." James stopped. "Miller, you gave her my last name." Emma smiled weakly. "I always knew that one day you would meet. Mothers know these things." They reached the helipad. The wind was strong, and there was no sign of any helicopter. Martinez spoke frantically on the radio. 5 minutes, he shouted. The staircase door burst open. Vincent Donovan appeared, followed by 2 armed men. He was exactly as Lily had described, dark hair, cold green eyes, and a burned scar on his right hand. "End of the line, Emma," said Vincent, pointing a gun at them. "And you must be the famous James Miller." James put Lily on the ground behind him, protecting her with his body. "Vincent, she's just a child. She's my walking humiliation," Vincent replied coldly. "Everyone in Boston knows my daughter isn't my daughter. Do you have any idea what that does to my reputation?" "Your reputation?" Emma stood up, furious despite her weakness. "You're willing to kill an innocent child because of your reputation?" Vincent laughed bitterly. "Innocent? She's the daughter of you too. She's living proof of your betrayal." The sound of the approaching helicopter made Vincent look at the sky for a second. It was enough. James threw himself against him, and both men rolled across the helipad floor. Emma grabbed Lily and ran away from the fight. The federal agents exchanged fire with Vincent's men, but when James finally overpowered Vincent and looked to where Emma and Lily were, he saw something that made him scream in despair. Emma was lying on the ground, with Lily kneeling beside her, and blood was spreading around them. A stray bullet had found its target. The helicopter blades thundered overhead as James knelt beside Emma's motionless body. Blood pooled beneath her, and Lily's tiny hands were stained red as she shook her mother desperately. "Mummy, wake up, Lily screamed, her voice breaking James's heart into a million pieces. Vincent Donovan lay unconscious nearby, his head bleeding from where it had struck the concrete during their fight. Agent Martinez was shouting orders into his radio while Agent Thompson secured the area. The chaos was overwhelming, but all James could focus on was the devastating scene before him. "Emma, stay with us," James whispered, checking for a pulse. It was weak, but there. "The paramedics are coming." Emma's eyes fluttered open briefly. "James, take care of our daughter," she gasped, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. "The safety deposit box, number 247, First National Bank. Key is in my shoe." "Don't talk like that. You're going to be fine," James said, but even he could hear the desperation in his own voice. "Daddy, James, why won't Mummy answer me?" Lily sobbed, her small body trembling uncontrollably. James pulled Lily into his arms, shielding her from the worst of the sight. "Mummy is very hurt, sweetheart, but the doctors are going to help her." The paramedics arrived within minutes, their efficiency both comforting and terrifying. As they worked on Emma, loading her onto a stretcher, James overheard fragments of their urgent communication. Gunshot wound to the abdomen, significant blood loss, pressure dropping. Vincent Donovan was also being loaded onto a stretcher, handcuffed, and under heavy guard. As they wheeled him past, his cold green eyes locked onto James with pure hatred. "This isn't over, Miller," Vincent snarled through his pain. "That girl will never be safe as long as I'm alive." Agent Martinez placed a protective hand on James's shoulder. "He's going straight to a maximum security federal facility. He won't be getting out this time. But James knew that Vincent's reach extended far beyond prison walls. The man had escaped once before, and his criminal network was vast and ruthless. At the hospital, James paced the surgical waiting room while Lily slept fitfully in his arms. Hours passed like days. Finally, Dr. Sarah Williams emerged from surgery, her expression grave but not hopeless. "She's alive," the doctor said, and James felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. "The bullet missed vital organs, but she's lost a significant amount of blood. The next 48 hours are critical. Can we see her?" "Briefly. But I must warn you, she's in a medically induced coma. We won't know the full extent of any potential complications until she wakes up." Standing beside Emma's hospital bed, James felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders like never before. This brave woman had risked everything to protect their daughter, and now it was his turn to step up. Lily stirred in his arms, her blue eyes focusing on her mother's still form. Is Mummy going to heaven like the angels in her stories? James's throat tightened. "No, sweetheart. Mummy is fighting to stay here with us. She's the strongest person I know." That night, as Lily finally fell into an exhausted sleep in the hospital's family room, James made a series of phone calls that would change their lives forever. He contacted his lawyer, his financial advisor, and his security consultant. By morning, he had liquidated assets, hired a team of private bodyguards, and begun the legal process to formalize his guardianship of Lily. But most importantly, he had made a promise to himself. Vincent Donovan and his associates would never again threaten his family. James Miller was no longer just a wealthy businessman. He was a father willing to move heaven and earth to protect his child. 2 weeks later, Emma remained in a coma while James had transformed his life completely. Around Lily's needs, the penthouse now looked like a proper family home, with child-safe locks, educational toys, and a kitchen stocked with all of Lily's favorite foods that he'd learned through careful observation and gentle questioning. "Daddy James, will you read me the story about the brave princess again?" Lily asked, curled up on the couch with a stuffed rabbit James had bought her. "Of course, sweetheart," James said, settling beside her with the book. But as he read about the princess who saved her kingdom, He couldn't help but think that Lily, herself, was the bravest person he knew. The phone rang. It was Detective Chen with updates that made James's blood run cold. "James, we have a problem. Vincent's lawyer is claiming that his client's constitutional rights were violated during his arrest. They're arguing that the evidence against him for Emma's shooting is circumstantial, since he was unconscious when the actual shot was fired." "What does that mean?" "It means he might get the charges reduced to attempted kidnapping instead of attempted murder. He could be out in 5 to 7 years instead of life." James felt rage building in his chest. "That's unacceptable. There's more. Our investigation revealed that Vincent has been running his criminal empire from prison through coded letters and visits from his lawyer. He's put a $500,000 bounty on you and Lily." That evening, James made the most difficult decision of his life. He called his old friend Marcus Chen, a former Navy SEAL who now ran a private security firm specializing in witness relocation. "Marcus, I need to disappear. Completely. New identities, new location, the works." "James, that's a big step. Once you go down this road, there's no going back to your old life." "My old life doesn't matter anymore. I have a daughter to protect." The next morning, James visited Emma in the hospital one last time before they would have to leave. He held her hand and whispered everything he needed her to know. "Emma, I'm taking Lily somewhere safe. When you wake up, and you will wake up, Detective Chen will know how to find us. I promise you, our daughter will be protected and loved." Every single day, as if sensing his presence, Emma's fingers twitched slightly in his hand. The monitors showed a brief spike in brain activity, but she didn't wake up. James left a letter for her with Dr. Williams, along with instructions for her ongoing care to be paid for from his personal accounts, regardless of how long it took. That afternoon, James and Lily walked out of their New York life and into completely new identities. James became Michael Thompson, a widowed author from Oregon. Lily became Sophie Thompson, his adopted daughter. They had new social security numbers, new birth certificates, and a new home waiting for them in a small coastal town called Millfield, 3,000 miles away from Vincent Donovan's reach. As their plane lifted off from JFK Airport, Lily pressed her face to the window. "Will we ever see Mummy again?" James took a small hand in his. "I promise you, Sophie, we'll see her again when it's safe. And until then, we're going to have wonderful adventures together." But as the plane carried them toward their new life, James couldn't shake the feeling that Vincent Donovan's network was far more extensive than anyone realized. The safety he was seeking might be nothing more than an illusion. What James didn't know was that Vincent's reach extended even into the federal agencies that were supposed to protect them. And in a hospital room in Manhattan, a nurse who had been caring for Emma was making a phone call that would change everything. "Boss, the woman is starting to wake up, and I know exactly where Miller took the girl." 6 months into their new life in Millfield, Oregon, James had almost begun to believe they might actually be safe. The small coastal town embraced Michael Thompson and his daughter Sophie with typical small-town warmth. James had rented a charming 2-story house 3 blocks from the ocean, where Lily could hear the waves at night. "Daddy Michael," Lily said, one morning, carefully using their new names as James had taught her. "Mrs. Patterson asked if you'd help with the school carnival. She says you have big city experience." James smiled, flipping pancakes. At 46, he had discovered that being a full-time father was more challenging and rewarding than building his business empire had ever been. "Tell Mrs. Patterson I'd be happy to help." Lily had thrived in their new environment. She attended Millfield Elementary under the name Sophie Thompson, where her intelligence and sweet nature quickly made her popular with both teachers and classmates. James had even started dating Sarah Mitchell, a local librarian who believed he was a widowed author working on his first novel. But their peaceful existence was built on lies, and James knew that lies, no matter how well-intentioned, had a way of catching up with you. The call came on a rainy Tuesday evening while Lily was doing homework at the kitchen table. James answered without checking the caller ID, expecting it to be Sarah confirming their dinner plans. "Hello, Michael," said a voice that made James's blood freeze. It was Vincent Donovan. James immediately hung up and grabbed Lily. "Sophie, we need to pack right now." "But Daddy, I have a spelling test tomorrow, and Jenny's birthday party is this weekend." "I'm sorry, sweetheart, but we have to leave. Remember what we practiced?" Lily's face went white as she understood. They had rehearsed this scenario dozens of times. She ran to her room and grabbed the emergency backpack they kept ready, while James activated the alarm system Marcus had installed. But as they headed for the back door, James saw them through the kitchen window. 3 black SUVs surrounding their house. Men in tactical gear were taking positions around the property. "This way," James whispered, leading Lily to the basement, where Marcus had installed a hidden escape tunnel that led to the storm drain system. As they crawled through the narrow tunnel, James could hear the front door being kicked in above them. Shouting voices, heavy footsteps, furniture being overturned. They emerged from the drainage system 4 blocks away, near the harbor. James had a boat waiting there, another of Marcus's contingency plans. But as they approached the dock, James saw a figure stepping out of the shadows. It was Vincent Donovan himself, flanked by 2 armed men. His face bore fresh scars from their fight at the hospital, and his green eyes burned with hatred. "Did you really think you could hide from me forever, Miller?" Vincent asked, his voice deadly calm. "I've been watching you for weeks. Cute little life you built here. Would be a shame if something happened to the townspeople who've been so kind to you." "Leave them out of this," James said, positioning himself protectively in front of Lily. "Your fight is with me. My fight is with the lying whore who betrayed me and the bastard child who humiliated me." Vincent snarled, "But killing you first will be my pleasure." Suddenly, police sirens wailed in the distance. Vincent frowned, clearly not expecting law enforcement to arrive so quickly. "Boss, we need to go," one of his men said urgently. Vincent smiled coldly. "Don't worry, Miller. This is just a setback. I know about your girlfriend Sarah, your new friends, everyone you care about in this pathetic little town. Next time, I won't be so merciful." The black SUVs disappeared into the night just as the first police car arrived. But James knew Vincent was right. This was far from over. As dawn broke over Millfield, James made a heart-wrenching decision. He called Marcus with instructions to create their 3rd set of new identities. But this time, he also made another call to Detective Chen in New York. "Chen, it's James. Is Emma awake yet? She came out of the coma 3 weeks ago. She's been asking about you and Lily constantly. I need you to arrange a meeting. It's time to end this." The warehouse in Queens was neutral territory, selected by Detective Chen and surrounded by federal agents. James hadn't seen Emma in 7 months, not since that terrible day on the hospital rooftop. She looked thinner now, with a scar visible above her collarbone, but her eyes were clear and determined. "Lily," Emma cried, dropping to her knees as their daughter ran into her arms. "Mummy, I missed you so much." Lily sobbed, and James felt his own eyes fill with tears at their reunion. "I'm so sorry I had to leave you," Emma whispered, stroking Lily's hair. "But Daddy James took good care of you, didn't he?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "He reads me stories every night and makes pancakes shaped like animals, and he's teaching me to swim." Emma looked up at James with gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you for everything." But Detective Chen interrupted their reunion with urgent news. "We need to discuss why we're really here. Emma, tell James what you discovered about Vincent's organization." Emma's expression grew serious. "While I was in the coma, Vincent's people thought I might never wake up. They got careless. One of his associates, thinking I was brain dead, confessed details about their operation within my hearing range. He didn't know I could hear everything." "What kind of details?" James asked. "Vincent isn't just running drugs and money laundering. He's been selling information to foreign agents, details about federal investigations, witness locations, even military contracts his organization has infiltrated. He's not just a criminal, James, he's a traitor." Agent Martinez stepped forward, with a tablet displaying surveillance photos. "We've confirmed Emma's information. Vincent has been operating as an intelligence broker for at least 3 years. The bounty on your heads isn't just about revenge. You've become liabilities to a network worth hundreds of millions. There's more," Emma continued. "Vincent has cancer, pancreatic. He has maybe 6 months to live. That's why he's become so reckless, so desperate to tie up loose ends." James felt a chill, a dying man with nothing to lose. "Exactly. But Emma's information gives us the leverage we need to bring down his entire network," Agent Martinez said. "We're offering full immunity and permanent relocation in exchange for her testimony." "What about Vincent?" James asked. Detective Chen exchanged glances with Agent Martinez. "That's where things get complicated. Vincent escaped federal custody yesterday during a medical transport." The room fell silent. Emma pulled Lily closer, her face pale. "How is that possible?" James demanded. "Inside, help. We suspect someone high up in the federal system has been on Vincent's payroll for years. The same person who's been feeding him your locations." James felt the walls closing in. "So nowhere is safe." "Actually," Agent Martinez said, "we have a plan, but it's risky, and it requires Emma to act as bait." Emma straightened her shoulders. "Tell me." "Vincent's dying, but is also desperate to recover the $50 million you helped hide. We leak information that you're willing to make a trade, the money's location for guaranteed safety for your family. We set up a meet, but it's actually a trap." "Absolutely not," James said immediately. "I won't let Emma put herself in danger again." "James," Emma said softly, "this is the only way to end this. To give Lily a real life, a safe life." "Mummy, I don't want you to go away again," Lily whispered. Emma cupped her daughter's face in her hands. "Remember what I always told you. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is fight for the people you love. This time, I'm going to fight to make sure we can all be together forever." But as they finalized the details of the plan, none of them noticed the small listening device that had been planted in the warehouse, or the fact that Vincent Donovan was already 3 steps ahead of them. The trap they were setting was about to become their own prison. The meet was set for midnight at Pier 47 in Brooklyn, a location chosen for its isolation and the federal agent's ability to control access points. Emma wore a wire, and sharpshooters were positioned on surrounding buildings. James had insisted on being part of the operation despite vigorous objections from law enforcement. "Remember," Agent Martinez said into his earpiece, "Vincent is desperate and unpredictable. Don't try to be a hero. We have 20 agents in position, thermal imaging, and 3 escape routes planned. This operation has been rehearsed a dozen times." But James couldn't stay in the surveillance van knowing Emma was walking into danger. Against direct orders, he positioned himself behind shipping containers with a clear view of the pier, carrying a Glock 19 provided by Detective Chen. His hands shook slightly as he checked the safety. He'd never fired a gun at another human being, but for Lily and Emma, he would do anything. The October wind whipped across the harbor, carrying the smell of salt and diesel fuel. Emma arrived first, her silhouette visible in the moonlight as she stood at the end of the pier. She wore a long black coat that concealed the bulletproof vest underneath, but James could see the tension in her shoulders. She looked small and vulnerable against the vast darkness of the water, but he knew that beneath her fragile appearance was a woman who had survived years of abuse, months of life-threatening injuries, and the kind of trauma that would have broken most people. Vincent emerged from the shadows at exactly midnight, flanked by 6 armed men, instead of the 4 intelligence had predicted. Even from a distance, James could see how much the pancreatic cancer had ravaged him in just the few months since their hospital encounter. He moved stiffly, his once powerful frame now gaunt and frail, but his eyes still burned with the same cold hatred that had haunted Emma's nightmares for years. "Emma," Vincent called out, his voice carrying across the water with an eerie calm. "My beautiful, lying wife. You look good for someone who was supposed to die in that hospital." "I'm not your wife anymore, Vincent. I never really was." Emma's voice was steady, but James could hear the underlying tremor of fear. Vincent laughed, a harsh sound that made James's skin crawl and caused several seagulls to take flight from nearby. "You think a piece of paper matters. You think some judge's signature erases 7 years of marriage. You belonged to me the moment you said I do. And that bastard daughter of yours, she carries my name, which makes her mine too. Lily is James's daughter, and she always has been. The DNA test you had done proved that conclusively. DNA doesn't make a father, Emma." Vincent's voice cracked with rage. "I'm the one who put a roof over her head for 3 years, who protected her, who gave her everything she needed. I'm the one who was there when she had nightmares, when she was sick, when she took her first steps. You terrorized her." Emma shot back, her composure finally cracking. She was 3 years old and afraid to make noise because you might hurt her. She used to hide in the closet when you came home angry. What kind of father does that make you? Vincent's face contorted with fury. "I gave her discipline, structure, order. What's Miller given her? A life on the run. False identities, constantly looking over her shoulder. At least when she was with me, she knew who she was, where she belonged." Through his earpiece, James heard Agent Martinez whisper urgently, "He's losing it faster than we anticipated." Emma Try to get him to reveal the location of his other associates. We need those names." But Emma had stopped following the script. Entirely her maternal instincts had taken over, and she was speaking from the heart. "Vincent, you're dying. I can see it in your face, in the way you move. The doctors probably gave you 6 months, maybe less. Why can't you just let us go? Let yourself find some peace before you." "Peace?" Vincent roared, spittle flying from his lips. "You want to know about peace? I'll have peace when I watch the life drain from Miller's eyes. When I make him watch me put a bullet in that little girl's head. When I make you choose which one of them dies first. That's the only peace I need." The plan fell apart in that moment. Vincent's men spread out, flanking Emma from multiple directions with military precision. Through his scope, James heard one of the federal snipers report in a tense whisper, "I can't get a clean shot without risking the asset. Repeat, no clean shot available." James felt his heart pounding so hard he was sure Vincent could hear it across the water. His palms were sweating despite the cold October air, and every instinct screamed at him to run, to save himself. But then, he thought of Lily sleeping safely in the federal safe house, trusting that her daddy would come home to her. He made a decision that would haunt him forever. Stepping out from behind the shipping containers, his hands raised but his gun clearly visible, he called out in a voice that carried across the harbor, "Vincent, you want me? Here I am. Let's finish this like men." "James, no," Emma screamed, her voice breaking with terror. Vincent turned toward James with a smile of pure malice, his green eyes glittering in the moonlight like a predator's. Well, the happy family, all together at last. How touching, how absolutely perfect. The standoff stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. James could hear his own breathing, the lapping of water against the pier, the distant hum of traffic from the Brooklyn Bridge. Everything seemed crystallized in that moment. The stakes, the danger, the love that had brought them all to this terrible place. "You know what I find most amusing about this whole situation?" Vincent continued, his gun now trained directly on James's chest. "You think you're the hero of this story. You think you rescued Emma and that little brat from the big bad monster. But the truth is, Miller, you destroyed their lives. Before you came along, they were safe. They had protection. They had security. Now look at them, running, hiding, living under false names. You didn't save them. You ruined them." "That's not true," James said, surprised by the steadiness of his own voice. "You ruined their lives long before I came along. Emma was planning to leave you anyway. She was already gathering evidence, already planning her escape. I just gave her the courage to do what she already knew she had to do." Vincent's face darkened with rage. "Courage? You gave her weakness. You gave her false hope. And now I'm going to take it all away." But as Vincent raised his gun toward James, Emma did something that no one, not the federal agents, not the snipers, not even James himself, had expected. She lunged forward with desperate determination, wrapping her arms around Vincent's waist and driving both of them toward the edge of the pier with surprising force. "If you want to kill them, you'll have to go through me," she shouted, her voice carrying all the fury and protective love of a mother defending her child. The gunshot that followed echoed across the harbor like thunder, and James watched in horror as both Emma and Vincent tumbled into the black water below, their bodies disappearing beneath the surface with barely a splash. Federal agents swarmed pier as James dove into the freezing harbor without a moment's hesitation. The water was shockingly cold, numbing his muscles instantly, and so murky and dark that he could barely see his hands in front of his face. The salt water burned his eyes as he dove deeper, frantically searching. He found Emma first, floating face down about 10 feet from where they had fallen. Blood was spreading through the water around her, dark ribbons that looked black in the moonlight. As he pulled her toward the pier ladder with desperate strength, he saw Vincent's body drifting deeper into the harbor, motionless and heavy, a much larger dark stain spreading through the water around him by the time the paramedics arrived. Emma was breathing but barely conscious, her skin blue-white from cold and blood loss. Her eyes fluttered open as they loaded her onto the stretcher, and her first words, whispered through chattering teeth, were the question that had haunted her for years. "Is he dead? Is Vincent finally dead?" Agent Martinez, his face grim but relieved, confirmed what they all desperately hoped. Vincent Donovan was shot through the heart, either by his own gun during the struggle or by one of our snipers. The body's been recovered. He's dead, Emma. He can't hurt you or Lily ever again." But as James rode to the hospital with Emma, holding her cold hand and listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor, he realized that surviving Vincent was only the beginning of their journey. Now they had to figure out how to build a real life together, without lies, without running, without the constant fear that had defined their existence for so long. The hardest part of their journey was just beginning. 2 years later, James stood in the backyard of their new home in Portland, Oregon, watching Lily, who had happily reclaimed her real name after months of therapy, play with their golden retriever puppy, Champion. The house was modest compared to his former Manhattan penthouse, but it was filled with something his old life had never possessed: genuine, unshakable happiness. "Daddy, look." Champion learned how to roll over and play dead, Lily called out, her face absolutely glowing with pure joy. At 8 years old, she had grown into a confident, spirited child who no longer flinched at unexpected noises or looked over her shoulder when walking down the street. "That's amazing, sweetheart. Show Mommy when she gets home from physical therapy. She's going to be so proud of both of you." Emma had made a remarkable recovery from her injuries, though she still walked with a slight limp that was barely noticeable unless you knew to look for it. More importantly, she had found something that had eluded her for years: genuine peace. The nightmares that had plagued her since her teenage years had finally stopped, replaced by dreams of the future instead of fears from the past. She'd even started sleeping through the night without waking up in cold sweats, checking locks, or reaching for the baseball bat she used to keep beside the bed. James had made the difficult decision to liquidate most of his business empire, keeping enough to ensure they would never want for anything while donating the majority, nearly $150 million, to organizations that helped families escape domestic violence. The irony wasn't lost on him that the money Vincent had so desperately wanted was now being used to destroy everything he'd stood for. James now worked as a volunteer coordinator for a non-profit called Second Chances, finding that helping other families rebuild their lives gave him more satisfaction than any corporate merger or hostile takeover ever had. The transformation in their lives was nothing short of miraculous. Where once there had been fear, now there was laughter. Where once there had been secrets and lies, now there was open communication and trust. Where once there had been isolation and loneliness, now there was family in every sense of the word. The doorbell rang, interrupting his thoughts, and James smiled widely as he saw Detective Chen through the window. She was holding a beautifully wrapped gift bag and grinning like someone with a wonderful secret. "Sarah, you made it. I was starting to worry you'd gotten caught up in a case. Wouldn't miss Lily's 8th birthday for anything in this world," Detective Chen said, hugging him warmly. "Besides, I have news that couldn't wait." "How's Emma doing with the physical therapy?" "Better every day. She's actually thinking about going back to school, maybe studying social work or child psychology. She says she wants to help other kids who've been through what Lily experienced." "And you, any regrets about giving up the millionaire lifestyle? The penthouse, the private jets, the corporate empire?" James looked out at Lily, who was now patiently teaching Champion to sit and stay, while simultaneously explaining to the puppy why rolling over was such an important skill to master. "You know, Sarah, I spent 45 years thinking success meant accumulating wealth and power, climbing higher and higher until I was so far above everyone else that I couldn't even see them anymore. Turns out success is much simpler and much more complicated than that." Detective Chen raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Success is hearing your daughter laugh so hard she gets hiccups. It's falling asleep next to someone who trusts you completely. It's knowing that the choices you make matter, not because they'll increase your net worth, but because they'll make the world a little bit better for the people you love." Emma's hybrid SUV pulled into the driveway at that moment, and Lily immediately abandoned her dog training session to run toward her mother, with Champion bounding joyfully beside her. James watched as Emma carefully got out of the car. She was still cautious about sudden movements, and then scooped their daughter into her arms with the kind of pure love that took his breath away every single time he witnessed it. "Mummy, Daddy said we can have cake before dinner since it's my birthday, and Detective Chen brought me a present, and Champion learned 3 new tricks." "Did he now?" Emma said, raising an eyebrow at James with mock severity, but unable to hide her smile. "Well, I suppose birthdays are special occasions that call for breaking a few rules." As the 3 of them walked into the house together, with Champion weaving between their legs and Detective Chen following behind, James reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. 2 years ago, he had been a lonely millionaire, with more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes, but no real purpose. No connection to anything or anyone that truly mattered. Now he was a father, a partner, and a man who understood that the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought, sold, or stolen. The birthday party that evening was small but perfect. Detective Chen regaled them with stories from her latest cases, carefully edited for young ears. Emma shared updates about her coursework and her plans to start working with at-risk families, and Lily demonstrated Champion's new tricks for anyone who would watch. When it came time to blow out the candles, Lily closed her eyes tight and made a wish that she whispered to James later. "I wish that we could all stay together forever and ever, and that Champion would live as long as people do." After the guests had gone home and Lily was finally asleep with Champion curled up protectively at the foot of her bed, James and Emma sat on their front porch swing, watching the sunset paint the Oregon sky in brilliant oranges and purples. The air was crisp with the promise of autumn, and the scent of Emma's flower garden drifted around them. "Do you ever think about what our lives would have been like if I had found you 7 years ago, right after Lily was born?" Emma asked, her head resting comfortably on James's shoulder. "Sometimes," James admitted honestly, "but then I think about everything we've been through, everything we've overcome together as a family. I don't think we would have appreciated what we have now if we hadn't fought so hard for it. The fear, the running, the constant danger, it taught us what really matters." Emma was quiet for a long moment, and James could feel her thinking, choosing her words carefully. "James, there's something I need to tell you. Something I found out today." James felt a familiar flutter of anxiety, a leftover response from their years of living in fear. "What is it?" Emma smiled and took his hand, gently placing it on her still flat stomach. "Lily's going to be a big sister." James stared at her in complete amazement, his mind struggling to process the words. "You're pregnant. 12 weeks. I found out today at my doctor's appointment. I wanted to be sure before I told you, especially after everything we've been through." James felt tears streaming down his face as he pulled Emma into his arms, holding her as if she might disappear if he let go. "I love you so much, both of you, all of you. God, Emma, I can't believe it. Another baby. Our baby. Are you happy?" Emma asked, though she could see the answer written all over his face. "Happy doesn't even begin to cover it. I'm everything good that I never thought I could be." As they held each other on that porch swing, listening to the sound of the wind in the trees and the distant laughter of children playing in the neighborhood, James realized that his real fortune had never been measured in dollars and cents. It was measured in moments like this, quiet evenings with the woman he loved, the sound of their daughter's peaceful breathing from upstairs, and the promise of new life growing inside Emma. The little girl who had whispered "help me" on a Manhattan sidewalk had indeed been his salvation. She had led him to a love he never knew he needed, and a family he never thought he deserved. In saving her, she had saved him too, transforming him from a man who had everything but felt nothing into a man who had found the only things that truly mattered. From inside the house, they could hear Lily talking softly to Champion in her room. "Tomorrow I'm going to teach you how to fetch sticks at the beach. And Daddy said, maybe we can build a sandcastle big enough for you to sit in. You're going to love the ocean. Champion, it's almost as big as Daddy's heart, and that's really, really big." James smiled, knowing that whatever challenges the future might bring, and there would be challenges, because that's what life was, they would face them together as a family, built not on secrets and fear, but on love, truth, and the unbreakable bonds that had been forged in the fire of their shared struggle. The millionaire who had once had everything had discovered that he had been living with nothing. The little girl who had once had nothing had given him everything that truly mattered. And now, as they prepared to welcome another child into their family, James understood that the greatest fortune of all wasn't something you could inherit, or steal, or lose in a market crash. It was something you built, day by day, choice by choice, with the people who mattered most, and that was a wealth that would last forever. The end.